Mr. President, thank you for taking time for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you, Sean, very much. It's an honor.
I appreciate you being here. You really have not had an opportunity to react and respond to the Mueller report, the AG's letter that summarized the report, that exonerated you. No collusion after all these years, as you have been claiming. He left the decision as it relates to obstruction to the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General. They quickly said, no, that does not rise to that level, and I wanted to get your reaction.
Well, we're very happy about it. It's gone on for a long time, almost since the beginning of my term. And, you know, if you look at it, we've done so much despite that. But it was a cloud. It was a cloud that most people didn't believe, fortunately. They spent more than $30 million, hundreds of interviews of people, in some cases very innocent people that were put through the ringer, millions of document pages, millions and millions of document pages. And after that, there was no collusion. There was no obstruction. It was such a ridiculous thing that happened. On the other hand, you know, you look at how did this start? How did it start? You had dirty cops. You had people that are bad FBI folks. I know so many. They're incredible people. But at the top, they were not clean, to put it mildly. And what they did to our country was a terrible, terrible thing.
Mr. President, we've talked a lot on this program about the FISA abuse scandal, and this is what we know, that in August of 2016, we know Bruce Orr warned everybody at the DOJ and the FBI that Christopher Steele hated you, that Hillary Clinton paid for the dossier, that it was not verified. But still, in October, and then 3 renewal application warrants approved, we're told by the Grassley-Graham memo, the bulk of information came from that phony dossier. Even Andrew McCabe said, no dossier, no FISA warrant. There were Russian lies disseminated to the American people before the election, but it also violated the rights of Carter Page and gave a backdoor into your campaign for spying, which I know the media made fun of at the time when you said it happened.
Well, when I said there could be somebody spying on my campaign, a lot of things happened. It was like it went wild out there. They couldn't believe that I could say such a thing. And as it turned out, that was small potatoes compared to what went on. When you look at what happened and when it happened and the money that was spent, the millions and millions on the phony dossier, and then they used the dossier to start things, and there was no truth whatsoever. It was a fraud and paid for by Hillary Clinton and paid for by the Democrats and the DNC. It's hard to believe. If you wrote this as a novel, nobody would buy it. It would be a failure because it would be too unbelievable. Nobody would believe it's possible, the things that went on. And we're getting to the bottom of it, and it's got to be. I mean, you can never allow this to happen to another president. This can never, ever happen to a president again, Sean. That was a disgrace and an embarrassment to our country that they were allowed to get away with this. And hopefully they won't get away with it.
Do you now feel vindicated? Was there anything that the Attorney General's report, and I know you've called for, obviously, the whole Mueller memo to be released. Did anything surprise you? And what about the people that were collateral damage in all of this?
Well, people were hurt so badly, so badly. Their lives have been ruined, and over something that should have never taken place, an investigation that should have never happened. There was no crime. As you know, you're only allowed to do this legally if there's a crime. There was no crime. They've all admitted it. Comey, who's a terrible guy, Comey and McCabe, and Strzok and Page, the lover Page, and all of these people, they've admitted in testimony that there was no crime. So they started an investigation based on no crime. I will say this, our new Attorney General, Bill Barr, is a great gentleman, and I've heard about him for years. He's a great man. Had he been there initially, this all would not have happened, because what's gone on there is just a disgrace to our country.
Mr. President.
But a lot of innocent people were hurt very badly, and it's very, very sad, actually.
For this to never happen again, what do you think the path is to getting to that point? In other words, the checks and balances that you believe need to be put in place so that a FISA court is, in this case, is not told Hillary paid for Russian lies. Its own author doesn't stand by it, but yet it was used to obtain 4 FISA warrants that gave a backdoor to your campaign. What do you think needs to happen to prevent this from ever happening again? What checks and balances and what should be pursued or not pursued, in your opinion?
Well, I'm going to leave that to our new Attorney General, who's been so incredible, actually, and that's based on a lot of people saying this is a very, very special person, and that's what you need in that position. That's a very important position. You need so many different, you need genius, you need rationality, you need so many different levels of good. And I'm also going to leave it to Lindsey Graham. He's head of Judiciary and Senate, and a very, very good guy and a very smart guy. And, you know, I'm just going to let them do whatever they want to do. And I would imagine they don't like what they see, to put it mildly, but you'd have to ask them. I think it's much more appropriate. I purposely didn't want to involve myself in this whole thing. I wanted to let other people do it, and I wish it didn't take so long. You know, we're talking about really longer than, if you think about it, longer than Mueller. It was many months before that Strzok and Page were talking about the insurance policy, right? An insurance policy, just in case Hillary Clinton lost. They wanted an insurance policy against me. And what we were playing out until just recently was the insurance policy. They wanted to do a subversion. It was treason. It was really treason. If the Republican Party had done this to the Democrats, if we had done this to President Obama, you'd have 100 people in jail right now, and it would be treason. It would be considered treason, and they'd be in jail for the rest of their lives. But it worked out the other way, and you know, it's just really a horrible situation and an incredible outcome, or certainly very close to an outcome. And we'll have to see how it all started. But I'm going to leave that to other people, including the Attorney General and others, to make that determination. But it's very, very important for our country to know, because in 50 years from now, in 100 years from now, if somebody tries the same thing, they have to know that the penalty will be very, very great if and when they get caught.
Before I get to the media question, would you consider, sir, a pardon? Look at General Flynn, for example, or, you know, Papadopoulos, who's had to spend 12 days in jail. Is that something that you would consider at some point?
Well, as I told you, many, many people were hurt, incredibly hurt by this whole scam. It's just a scam, but it's much worse than that. It's at the highest level, and the importance is so what it meant to our country. It's a very, very dark period, and I think maybe we're shedding a lot of light. We're gonna come into a bright, beautiful, sunny day. But when you mention General Flynn, he was a man who had a incredible record in the military. You see what happened to him. The FBI said he wasn't lying, as I understand it, and the Mueller group said he was lying, and you know what he's gone through, and what so many others have gone through. I could name names that would just go on for your entire show. It's a very, very sad thing. I don't want to talk about pardons now, but I can say it's so sad on so many levels.